What's up, you sweaty nerds and greasy degenerates? Fu Xuan and Lynx have finally arrived in Honkai Star Rail, the survivability patch. The sustainability patch is finally in full motion, and so the verdict must be made. Can Fu Xuan and Lynx solo sustain in the toughest content of the game? Well, let's go ahead and dive in and find out. This video, forewarning, will be about Fu Xuan. I'll probably do a second video about Lynx so that we can go into full details about how well they can do in the different content of the game. We're talking about Memory of Chaos, Swarm Disaster, yada yada, so let's dive right in. Alright, so full transparency here. I did most of my testing with the Mono Quantum teams, whether I had QQ in there, as you can see here, or whether I was using Lynx. Lynx does not give her the solo sustain opportunity because Lynx is a sustain as well, but I was using this in Swarm Disaster, and I was also using QQ in things like Memory of Chaos, and I was actually able to clear Memory of Chaos with this team. So I can say with certainty, and I'm really glad to say, that Fu Xuan can solo sustain. I was also able to find out that Fu Xuan works on a really skill-hungry team, because the Lynx team is not skill-hungry at all, but the QQ team is very skill-hungry, because not only is QQ using a lot of skill points, but Sela is as well. And I'm really glad and happy to say that this team does work very well. It's actually very, very strong. Alright, so let's go ahead and peel the curtain back a little bit more. So with this Fu Xuan that I was testing, I have her traces fully leveled up, and there are a lot of different ways we can build our Fu Xuan. So for solo sustainability, I highly recommend using this energy regeneration rope, because when she's solo sustaining, she wants to use her ultimate really, really often, because she can heal your allies, and she can heal herself because she gets more triggers of her talent. Normally, you only get 2 uses of her talent, but every time you ultimate, you get another use. So I have her built for speed and for energy regeneration rate so that she can use her ultimate really, really often. I found out in Swarm Disaster that rather than stack HP like this HP planar sphere you see here, in Swarm Disaster and even Memory of Chaos a lot of the time, I actually use a defense planar sphere, because sometimes she gets multi-targeted by the enemies, and if you can believe it, in the hardest content of the game, a Fu Xuan can still die if she gets multi-targeted and you get unlucky. But if you have just one, and I mean just one, defense relic on her, she has a ton of survivability, she doesn't get hit as hard, the defense does help her with the damage mitigation, believe it or not, the defense does help her with damage mitigation, even though she scales off HP, so it really helps her survivability when she's in the tougher content. So I'd recommend having an HP sphere when you want her to deal a little bit more damage and you're not as worried about survivability. But if you're in like Memory of Chaos 10, maybe Swarm Disaster, consider putting a defense relic on her, like this defense sphere you see here. That way she can have that extra survivability if she's a solo sustain unit. If she's not a solo sustain unit, you can probably get away with using the HP and let a healer every once in a while. You'll be totally fine. This defense relic is mostly just for solo sustain moments. And because of that, I have her built for speed as well. So you see I have a speed boot on her. I also have the hacker space, a 2-piece set in order to help her with the speed. And this ends up causing me to have 2,000 defense, which is really, really strong. This Fu Xuan she basically can't die, like it's crazy. And she has 138 speed, so she's generating skill points for the team, as well as generating her ultimate really often. You see, I only have 6,000 HP, and a lot of people are like, whoa, dude, that's not very good at all. You guys aren't thinking about it the right way. This 6,000 is not actually 6,000. When she's in combat, and Matrix of Prescience is active, she has well over 7,000 HP because Matrix of Prescience raises her max HP. And she's using her ultimate so often that even though she has 6,000 HP, don't forget she has a ton of defense. So she doesn't really lose a lot of health, and when she finally does trigger her talent, she raises her health all the way back up again. So, and I'm using her ultimate so often, I get those, I constantly and I always have those triggers available. This Fu Xuan, believe it or not, has more survivability in Swarm Disaster than my fully stacked HP build that had 8,000 HP. When I had like 8,000 or more HP on my Fu Xuan, it actually was less survivable in Swarm Disaster than this build that you see right here. I also used this in Memory of Chaos, and I found that I liked it there more too. However, like I said, you can actually run the fully stacked HP build where you take this defense piece off and the HP sphere on. For Memory of Chaos, it's usually fine in most cases. If you are finding that she needs a little bit more survivability, you can totally throw the defense sphere on her. Like I said, having the HP does give her more damage, but she's not really a damaging unit. That's not really what she's for. So just something to think about there. There's a lot of ways you can build Fu Xuan, and something that, for all the people that left early, they're not going to see this, but you can totally tell that she can be built for crit too. You can build crit DPS Fu Xuan. There's 18 crit stats right here, and there's 12 attached to her Matrix of Prescience. So fully leveled up Fu Xuan, without even putting any relics on her, has 30% crit rate. Okay, so you best bet that in the coming weeks, I'm going to be building a crit Fu Xuan and testing her out as well. So stay tuned for that. So not only can Fu Xuan solo sustain, but she might actually be the best solo sustain unit in the entire game. Unless you have someone like Yangqing as your main DPS, then you probably want someone like March 7th or Gepardo, because Yangqing needs to not get hit at all or he'll lose his buff, so he needs a shield. But in every other case, Fu Xuan is probably the best unit you could use for a number of reasons. When comparing her to someone like Luocha, Luocha has really great healing, but you can still get one shot with Luocha on your team. You can't heal a downed character. But with Fu Xuan, she mitigates that damage ahead of time, and she can also crowd control prevent. It's not a cleanse. She literally prevents the crowd control from ever happening. It's only once per skill, but she uses her skill every other turn or so she's going to be using it pretty often. You can have a 100% uptime on her skill. If you have a 100% uptime on her skill, it's very skill point efficient, and she's actually very skill point positive, and she also buffs your entire team's damage while actually having some damage of her own. She's the highest damage dealing tank in the entire game, and I think she actually deals even more damage than Luocha, because she actually has a lot of crit rate that she provides, not only crit rate to her team, but crit rate to herself, through her traces, and through her skill. And she has a really high damaging ult. I haven't even built damage Fu Xuan, crit Fu Xuan, but I did 130,000 damage in Simulated Universe the other day with my Fu Xuan. So, just something to think about there. Fu Xuan can not only dish out the damage, but she can also solo sustain better than probably any other character in the entire game. She gets the S+ from me personally. We'll be testing links soon. So, if this video was helpful to you in any way, shape, or form, please leave a like and subscribe. If you hated it, you hate my gut, you think I smell weird, please leave a hate thread in the comments so I can tell you how much more Fu Xuan likes me than she likes you. Anyways, I'll catch you next time. Peace out.